Congratulations on this film. I was telling Brian, it is fantastic. I knew his story a little bit from hearing it on the news. I just didn't know how much depth this went into. For you two, at what point did you guys decide you wanted to tell this story?
Um, well, I think it was a. Should we introduce ourselves, or we just should just go straight in?
I just go straight and I'll introduce you guys in a intro
Okay,
section.
gotcha. I think in terms of when we knew we were going to tell the story, to be perfectly honest, I think the story found us. And once the story found us, we knew it was a story we wanted to be participated. So Blake's manager actually knows the director Einar, because Johan is Icelandic and Einar is Icelandic. And if you're an Icelandic person, you basically know who the other Icelandic people are, just because there's only like 400,000 of them. And so one day, Johan called up Einar and said, like, "Hey, I want to make this film about Blake. Are you interested?" And Einar met Blake. We got to meet Blake, and then we are like, "Okay, this guy is super charismatic, a wonderful human being, and doing amazing things." And we wanted to say, like, "Yeah, hell yeah, let's follow you. Let's get a camera crew going, and let's see what happens."
Awesome. And there's so much to his story. I really enjoyed this documentary, not because it doesn't just talk about successes. It mentions his mistakes. It mentions his redemption. Like it goes through the entire thing. Uh, how much of his story were you able to tell, and how much did you have to cut out just for time purposes?
We started this 5 years ago, following Blake, and the initial kind of storytelling focus was that Blake was training to make the Olympic team, the able body, not the Olympic team, and we were going to follow him through that process. And what it transpired into was this battle that he had to even be allowed to run. So we had been, going to meets. We've been, following him in this journey all along. And then when we hit all the legal issues and all that, we had, really started to film and just follow the journey with Blake. So there was a lot of content that we left out because at the core of it, it's a personal story. It's Blake's personal journey, and we felt, through all the different variations of this documentary that we had filmed at the different stages, that it was best to go back to the core, to Blake's, his family, his personal uh, objectives and struggles. And I think that personal journey resonates really well in this documentary.
And
Definitely.
to follow up, one thing I would point out is, at the end of the project, as a masochist and editorial, you want to see how much footage you have. And, we had over 300 hours, and the movie is 88 minutes. So, from just a math perspective, a lot got left on the floor. But at the same time, like Alan was pointing out, at some sense, like the story seemed very linear at first because, like, Blake runs fast. He's fast enough to compete on the U.S. Olympic team. We're going to see him compete in the Olympics, and it's going to be like a traditional sports narrative. But honestly, I think this, because things went in a in a way we couldn't even predict, that it made us to constantly have to think and sort of say, like, okay, we shot this. Does this actually reinforce the story, or is it just sort of extraneous? And that's sort of the tricky thing. It's like, at some point there's a lot of stuff that we loved, but at some point we're like, this is distracting from the core narrative. Like, we can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say we ended up getting in the weeds quite a bit during the process with the technological doping questions. Does Blake have an advantage? Does he not have an advantage? And we after filming him doing the testing at the University of Colorado at Boulder, it became something that we just became fascinated with. And I think that some of the versions that we had we had were really getting into the details and the focus of that. And what we realized, at some point was that we needed to pull it back and create and really tell this personal story.
Definitely. I don't. For me, I haven't done documentary. So, how do you keep yourself from being overly invested in his story to the point where you insert yourself into it?
Um,
Go ahead, Brian.
I think in some ways, especially over 5 years, you can't help but sort of apply your thoughts or your opinion or your perspective into it. But I also think over 5 years, you also learn to sort of like be able to create some boundaries and distances between things. Because at some point, even between the people working on the crew, we all approach things from a different background. So, some things that, I might find interesting, Alan is not so enthused about, or the other producers or director is not so enthused about. So at some point, there's a constant reframing of, like how do we combine all of our voices, but also do it in such a way that we are not, making it a story about the filmmaking, it, but focusing on the character.
It's difficult. Blake is extremely charismatic, and when he walks in the room, he gives you a big hug. He's very, very like warm. So trying to keep those boundaries in place where we're telling a story, we're being objective as best we can. This is not, a fluff piece on Blake. It's an objective as best we can documentary. It's a little bit, it is challenging because he is so likable.
Definitely. And even though Blake is a big name, this is an independent project. Most independent projects don't see the light of day, but you guys are going to be screened at Dances with Films at the TCO Chinese Theater. How does that feel?
Uh, you want to go first, Alan?
It's when you're making a film, you never know whether anyone outside of your group's going to see it or not. So when you get these opportunities, it's so gratifying to have your community, your colleagues, your family and friends, and everyone be able to participate in watching this film with you and experience it, and have it at in a very prestigious film festival in Hollywood is quite amazing. So I'm extremely excited about attending and seeing just breathing in the whole experience.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything?
Yeah. So I think my statement is it feels kind of surreal. So I think to a certain extent, especially having the subject matter of Blake and Blake just constantly training, constantly working, I think in the process of just observing him and seeing what he does every single day made us want to work just as hard. And to a certain extent, it's just like, when everything went sideways, when the pandemic occurred, and like part of me, like as you were saying, with independent film, it's really hard to keep momentum. But I think one thing that was very important to learn in this process is, it's building trust and saying what you're gonna do, and then good things will happen. And now, being at the TCL Chinese Theater, it's usually you see that theater, you go there because you want to see some blockbuster release, or you check it out on a tour. To actually have a film playing there, it's just like, huh, wow, this is surreal, but I am totally going to be taking lots of random photos with the people dressed up on the street, while also, just it's like it's almost core Hollywood to a certain extent, but at the same time, with uh, dances with films, as you're pointing out, it's a celebration of the part of Hollywood that isn't as celebrated, or it's not the blockbusters, it's not anything like that. It's just a celebration of telling awesome stories in a you know basically a legendary location. So I still can't believe it's happening, but I'll be there. But I think mentally my brain will be like, is this really happening? Is this a dream? Is this
Definitely. And you know, all these films have such incredible messages. What do you hope people take away from message, and how has Blake's story affected you guys?
Well, it I think the message is that you just, no matter what people's expectations or perceptions of you may be, no matter what limitations they place upon you, that you have this ability to at least to try to rise above it, and to, whether you succeed in the end or not based on your original objectives, it's that not listening to the people who are placing that limitations on you, and to just try your best to rise above it. And I think that's what Blake did. I mean, even, and I don't want to spoil the end of this documentary, but at the end, he had this feeling like, whether I accomplished what I initially set out to do, I had an influence on others, and I feel proud of what I have done myself. And I didn't let their labels, influence me to not pursue this desire that I had. And that at the end, I, I'm better for it. And I think that the disabled community is better for it too.
Definitely.
yeah.
Well, thank you both for your time. It's a fantastic film. Uh, I hope it gets a great audience at Dance with Films. Would you like to plug when it's going to be showing?
Yeah, so Dances
It's
for
showing. Go ahead, Brian.
we both want to do it because we're both so hyped. So
I'll let you do the reveal.
Abel, the Blake Leeper story will be playing this Saturday, July 1st at 12:30 at the TCL Chinese Theater. And come on out. It's going to be a huge crowd. It's going to be a great story, and you're probably going to see me get humiliated because I decided to put Race Blake.
Awesome. Well, congratulations once again, and best of luck.
We thank you so much.